pulls up another video and asks if she can do that move. She mulls it over for a moment, stands up from her seat and starts swinging her hands super fast, moving like a blur. Shu Qing is totally thrilled to see her nail the technique and excitedly tells her she's got it. She tells him to hit her up anytime he wants to learn it, promising to teach him. With those words, she heads out, leaving my guy doing a little happy dance, probably dreaming of becoming a warrior someday. As she walks to her room, she notices a fat cat in her way, but she ignores the little furball and simply shuts the door in the poor cat's face. Once inside her room, she lets out a sigh in fear, realizing there's actually no one in this world without ulterior motives after all, and the reason our hero is helping her is to learn some martial arts. This new world is really scaring her. All these weird things do not make any sense. But then, she glances up at the wide ceiling, grabs her sword and starts practicing. The noise from her room makes our hero curious if she's not going to take a nap. Feeling tired, he also drops down on his bed, finding it unbelievable that there's a woman right next to his room. The thought makes him really happy though, and he falls asleep with those sweet thoughts lingering in his mind. Suddenly, he is jolted awake by heavy voices. He looks outside to see dusk arriving, checks his phone, and realizes he spent the entire day sleeping. He immediately gets up and decides to take Lady Jiang with him to show her the real world outside. As she puts on her shoes, he advises her on the do's and don'ts in public areas, insisting she not do anything without his permission. After laying out all the rules, he asks if she understands everything, to which she meekly replies yes. He also doesn't forget to take a photo of her before they head out. However, in the photo, her pretty face looks more like a molester, who is looking forward to grabbing some peachy ass in the streets. The boy asks her to give him a smile, but her forced grin is even worse than her usual expression, and he nearly faints seeing it. He abandons the picture idea and decides they should just get going. But before they head out, he tells her to leave her sword behind because he doesn't want any trouble. Lady Jiang immediately refuses, but the boy reassures her that the people on the streets are as weak as he is, so she doesn't need to worry about anyone. The lady reluctantly gives up her sword. While she's standing there, he tries to snap another picture of her. This time, he manages to get a really good shot and cheerfully says, "Let's get going." Once they step out of the apartment building, the girl starts looking around anxiously. Our hero explains that this is a neighborhood where families live. He points out the main entrance and the road outside and mentions the stores on both sides where people can buy food, clothes, or whatever they need. Lady Jiang gets intimidated seeing a guy on a scooter, probably thinking it's some kind of magical ride. As they walk on, they notice some people. A fat woman immediately recognizes Lady Jiang for some reason. The girl hides behind the guy while the woman insists she's seen her before. Meanwhile, a guard asks if our hero has snagged a girlfriend for himself, but the boy just laughs it off and says she's just a friend. But it seems this fat lady isn't letting up. She immediately recognizes Lady Jiang as the sword-wielding woman from yesterday. The guard and the woman start discussing the sword she had, and the fat lady explains everything in detail. Our hero quickly jumps in, yelling that it was just cosplay, where people pretend to be fictional or historical characters. Luckily, the fat lady buys the cosplay story, and our hero seizes the chance, grabbing Jiang's hand and walking away swiftly. Seeing them walking side by side reminds the old man of his own past. Once they're out of sight, Lady Jiang pulls her hand away and starts feeling grumpy. He asks if that woman saw her yesterday. The girl remains silent to this query, and the boy is now sure Jiang must have met that woman on the stairs. Nevertheless, they continue their journey together. The lady is quite shocked to see cars moving so fast. The boy then gives a brief description of cars and how they evolved from horse carriages to these robust, speedy machines. Since she can't understand how these things work, she assumes there must be a horse stuck inside providing the much-needed horsepower to run the car. The boy then introduces her to the concept of cameras and explains how the movies they watched were filmed with these devices. He points out that if he were to misbehave with her here, people from far away would still be watching from that CCTV and could get them arrested. So he reassures her that as long as she behaves herself, she isn't their target. Lady Jiang picks up a few pebbles from the ground, and our hero quickly tells her not to even think about knocking out any cameras. She stops immediately, and he tells her to just put the stones away. He then explains traffic lights and how they work, pointing out that red means stop and green means you can cross the road. I'm narrating this because I want my friends and fellow viewers to learn too. Once they cross the road, Jiang's attention is caught by the bright streetlights and the grocery stores. The high-speed cars are fascinating to her as well. As they walk, the boy picks out a hair ribbon for the lady. But when he imagines her with those cute fur balls on her head, he realizes it might not be suitable for her after all. He starts thinking while looking at all the cute, sparkly things laid out before them. Lady Jiang perks up at the sight, and when our hero asks if she likes a particular ribbon, she immediately says yes. Once she has the ribbon in her hands, she starts stretching it vigorously, but then she uses it correctly and puts it on her head, looking all cute and beautiful once again. Even our hero can't help but admire her beauty. As the sun sets and the city lights up, our duo heads into a restaurant. Our hero orders 2 fried rice cakes with extra spices and a plate of sliced cucumber as a side dish. As they look for a place to sit, the boy reveals to Jiang that this is the same place where all their food comes from. He relies on this restaurant because they serve the best food, and he's been enjoying it since he was a kid. Suddenly, Jiang's mind is totally captivated by the vibrant lights dancing before her eyes. She's so lost in the moment that she finds herself startled when the waiter arrives with their food. The boy decides to start eating and offers her a pair of chopsticks. She looks really nervous. And while he chugs down his lemon juice, he realizes he probably made the right choice by not letting her wander off by herself. She clearly needs more guidance than he thought, but he's confident he can teach her everything step by step. After they finish eating and pay the bill, they leave the restaurant feeling satisfied, especially our hero. They head back home, and once they're there, he asks if she's starting to feel more comfortable. She doesn't respond and just sits quietly on the couch. He tries to reassure her, saying that living in this world isn't so bad, especially with all the delicious food and junk food to munch on. He tells her that once she has her own ID card, she'll be able to enjoy it even more. Despite his reassurances, she still doesn't seem too thrilled about staying and quietly says she wants to go home. But then again, he reminds her that she can't go back home since it's already been 1,200 years. It looks like she has to accept reality. She asks how they're going to solve the identity problem. The dude explains he's no government guy to handle this stuff. But there's always a way, and reassure her that he'll help her. The girl gets flustered and feels grateful for his kind gesture. This time she thanks him properly by calling him a young warrior. The boy responds with the same brotherly energy, emphasizing that identity is crucial in this world, and without it, it's difficult to navigate. He then asks her where the list he gave her yesterday is. The girl points to the dustbin. The boy is disappointed by her action and tells her to retrieve it right away. Once she gets the paper out of the bin, the lady asks what they'll do if the ID card issue isn't resolved. Our hero points out that she'll be a criminal and there's nothing he can do. Without an ID, she can't get a job, buy property, or even use public transport, and emphasizes that an ID card is the holy grail in this world. The lady gets a bright idea and asks if, by making money and finding a place to live, the ID would become less important. The boy explains there are still many things she can't do without an ID, like having a bank account, a phone, online accounts, online shopping. The list goes on. He then opens his laptop, searches for unregistered resident certificate, while also telling the lady to approach the authorities directly for help with her ID card. He reassures her that the worst-case scenario is they might confiscate her, but he's sure they'll treat her nicely. Lady Zhang immediately reaches for her sword, asking if he's thinking about turning her into the authorities. The boy tells her to forget it and just focus on studying first. He suggests she look at history or something, and once she has a basic knowledge of modern society, she can decide for herself. The woman gets silent and seems visibly anxious and sad. She asks if it's a problem for him if she stays here. Our hero reassures her that she can crash here as long as she wants, but insists she shouldn't fight or kill with her sword. He promises everything will be fine. Just then, the cat comes over, and the boy realizes he nearly forgot to feed this furball in all the madness. He plays around a bit with the cat and tells Lady Jiang that if she has nothing else to do, she can do some studying. The girl bows her head and decides to do just that. Looks like the dude found nothing worthwhile on the internet, so he checks his phone and decides to call someone he knows. He's about to call his best friend Chin Hao, who is now a good police officer, though he's not sure if his internship period has passed, and Chin Hao is now a full-blown officer. While texting Chin Hao, he wonders if he should mention that he's met a girl from 1,200 years ago. But he decides against it and sets up a meeting with his friend without revealing anything about their meeting. Feeling happy, the boy decides to take a shower to freshen up. After the steamy bath, he feels really satisfied. It then occurs to him that the girl hasn't showered yet, but he decides not to dwell on it. Suddenly, he remembers he's sharing space with someone of the opposite gender, and he knows he'd be in hot water if she caught him wandering around naked. Thankfully, no one sees him, and he hurries into his room. A while later, Lady Jiang cautiously emerges from her room, darts to the bathroom with clothes in hand, and immediately shuts the door for a much-needed bath, just like she used to do in ancient times regularly. Since it's the weekend, the boy grabs a digital writing pad and starts teaching her how to write. She's already good at reading traditional Chinese characters and nailing their pronunciation, so now she tries her hand at writing a few words. Suddenly, Melon pops up, grabbing both their attention. The cat looks hungry, so the boy decides to feed her while Lady Zhang keeps practicing her writing. Watching him dish out cat food, Lady Zhang gets curious and asks what it actually is, to which Xu Qing explains it's food made just for cats to eat. Lady Zhang quickly imagines how they might produce such cat food, picturing pouches hanging from tall trees in her mind. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door, and the boy rushes to receive the food delivery. He hands it to the lady, telling her it's her dinner for tonight as he's going to meet his friend later to ask about her identity card. The girl immediately starts digging into the food, and our hero assures her he'll teach her how to use a phone and computer so they can stay in touch. While she eats, Little Melon chimes in asking for some food, but the dude scoops up his cat and reminds her to stick to her own cat food. Curious, the lady meekly asks if she can't give this cat some of her food, to which the boy nods and explains that this kind of food isn't healthy for cats. The lady is shocked to hear this, and her mind stops for a moment. If this food isn't healthy for an animal, how can it be good for humans? She even starts feeling like her burger doesn't smell good anymore. Shortly after, he shows Lady Jiang how to use Discord to message him on his phone, making it clear that it will not be him hiding inside the computer, but rather it will be the transmission waves who will carry his voice to her. Leaving his dormitory, he scratches his head, wondering if this is all okay. Eventually, he reaches his destination after a bus ride. Stepping off, he looks around and spots his friend sitting in the distance, waving at him. When they finally meet face to face, they exchange greetings. Officer Chin then pours a cold beer for our hero, mentioning it's the first time he's serving him a cup of beer. They both sit down, and our hero asks his friend how he can drink as a police officer. Chin Hao explains that he's off duty and dressed casually, just here as an ordinary person. The boy then places his order, carefully noting all the delicious items he's about to enjoy. They clink glasses and toast each other. Shu Qing asks his friend how his job is going and what it's like being an outstanding officer. Chin Hao bluntly describes it as terrible, and all the talk about heroes saving the day is nonsense. He shares how he's often pulled into trivial disputes between couples and ends up resolving conflicts with old ladies in the neighborhood. He hardly ever encounters thieves. Instead, he deals with daily disputes and nonsense. But our hero Shu Qing points out the brighter side, mentioning how people are generally living and working happily, which is a good thing. As much as Chin Hao hates his job now, he always dreamed of becoming a police officer when he was a kid. However, he stopped growing after hitting 1.6 meters, knowing that the minimum height requirement was 1.7 meters. He cried a lot in our hero's arms. Fortunately, when the height requirement was replaced by the high jump, he was excited to start practicing every day, eventually achieving his dream. But after dealing with just trivial disputes, the officer is so worn out that he jokes he'd even fight a woman with a sword if he has to, just to make a big show. Our hero immediately tells him not to joke about such things. Suddenly, the boy changes the subject and casually asks about what happens if a homeless person who has lost their memory wants to get an ID card and work without any proof of citizenship. To which the officer bluntly states that getting an ID card isn't easy, and someone fitting that description is likely a shady person. With the energy of an officer, he asks our hero for the person's name and address he is speaking about. The boy tries to spin a tale about how his mother's brother had a son whose friend is in a similar situation. The officer cuts him off, telling him to stop the nonsense and reminding him that without proof of identity, like a blood test or something similar, they can't get an ID card. The boy presses further, asking if the person he encountered was unidentified and strange, like a homeless guy. The officer points out that if their behavior is suspicious, they must be investigated. Seeing his friend's suspicious gaze, the boy quickly tells him to stop looking at him as if he's harboring a fugitive. He insists he's not here to discuss how to cover up anyone's identity. His friend agrees, reassuring him that he trusts him. He suggests asking for basic information from the stranger. They could also use a person's directory or DNA information to verify details. His friend suddenly grows irritated, telling our hero to drop the conversation and starts downing his beer. The boy jokes that he only came here because he needed something to talk about, otherwise they would not have met. Then, he playfully tells his friend to forget everything and jokingly extends his hands, telling him to handcuff himself because he wants to experience what it's like to be interrogated and cuffed. After their banter, our hero brings up the ID card subject again, but the officer's answer remains the same. He gives an example that if it were so easy to get a new ID, criminals would be stabbing people daily and running off with new identities to start fresh. They continue their back and forth, and after drinking a lot of beer, the officer finds himself knocked out cold. Our hero tries to wake him up, reminding him of his duty to resolve disputes between old ladies. But the officer just wants more beer, so our hero tells the waiter not to bring any more. The boy pays the bill while his friend still wants more booze. Our hero then learns there's a 50% discount if you spend 100 yuan, so he decides to get a lot of fish for Lady Jiang. After saying goodbye to his hiccuping friend, he grabs his takeout and heads back home. Though he is a bit let down that he got no lead, but he is not sweating it. Once he's back home, he finds the girl fast asleep, and he can't help but admire her beauty. His heart and brain seem to short-circuit as he gazes at her, unsure of the feelings stirring inside him. The girl wakes up abruptly, feeling a bit startled to see him back. He shows her the food he brought, and she quietly says thanks. Not satisfied with just a simple thank you, the boy playfully insists she say it loud and clear. Blushing, the girl says, "Thank you, young warrior," which prompts an exaggerated reaction from the boy, claiming it was an easy task and a small contribution. As he unpacks the food, the girl asks if he drank a lot. He says no and shows her a yogurt pack, telling her to lick it before drinking. He starts rubbing his tongue against the sweet and sour yogurt, and she follows suit, surprisingly enjoying it and diving right in. The boy tells her to eat up and not let the food get cold. As he heads into the bathroom to take a bath, he can't help but smile, feeling the warmth of coming back home and seeing someone waiting for him. After his bath, when he's back outside, the girl immediately notices him. He asks if she checked her clothes, which confuses her at first. Then she remembers the bra he brought for her and feels super embarrassed just thinking about it. Apparently, trying to figure it out with YouTube tutorials didn't go so well. Later, she heads to the bathroom to change. She's nervous about trying on the fancy dress, since she's used to plain outfits that match her mood. She wonders what kind of prickly princess she'll look like in this new dress. She lays out the bra and dress on the bed, takes a bath, and dries her hair with a blow-dryer. She's really grateful for the kind young man helping her adjust to everything, but she knows relying on him isn't a long-term solution, and she can only get so far with her limited knowledge. The sunshine of the next day leaks through the window, and the girl comes out of her room while rubbing her tired, sleep-deprived eyes. It looks like our hero woke up early this time. Lady Zhang asks him if he's working early in the morning, to which he replies that he's just watching some news. The girl immediately exudes a gloomy aura, asking if he is a government official. The boy reassures her that he's not, reminding her that if he were, she would already have her much-desired ID card. He then asks if she's hungry and offers to buy breakfast, asking if she'd like to come along. The girl declines and heads to the bathroom, so the boy decides to go by himself, telling her she can Netflix and chill in the meantime. Humming a tune, the boy strolls outside. The old guard calls him over, and the boy reluctantly approaches, noticing 2 more people present. One of the ladies asks if he's heard any creepy, weird noises lately, and the way she is looking at our hero, it's clear she suspects him of being the source of these sounds. It seems like the boy is completely clueless about what the lady is talking about, and he tells them that he didn't hear anything, and slept soundly last night. He wonders if there was a theft, but the old man suggests that they might be haunted because his dog was terrified by something the other night, so much so that it didn't even bark. When the boy asks the old guard if he noticed anything else, the old man takes a puff of his cigarette, exhales the smoke, and confesses that he didn't see anything, but he caught something on video footage. They all gather in the surveillance room where the old man plays the video. In the footage, they see something moving so fast that it appears as just a blur, and everyone is visibly terrified by this mysterious creature. And the reason our hero is also feeling terrified is that he's pretty sure it's Lady Zhang. He facepalms himself, unsure why she's doing that, and decides to go back to the apartments to ask her himself. Well, it looks like now we know why Lady Zhang was feeling tired a while ago. She was probably trying to explore this world by herself in the night to learn new things. The boy then asks the old man if the same had happened yesterday as well, to which the guard says no, noting that nothing unusual happened last night. He awkwardly laughs and decides to entertain the idea that maybe there's a ghost around. The bald guy over there and the chubby lady get curious, wondering why a ghost would be playing around in the dead of night, especially in their place. The old man decides to keep an eye out to see if there's some guy lurking around looking for a chance to steal. The boy finally gets back home and wastes no time yelling at her, asking why she snuck out in the middle of the night before. He stares at her with a mix of disappointment and concern. The girl meekly asks how he knew it was her wandering, which just infuriates the boy more. He facepalms in frustration, reminding her about the CCTV cameras everywhere that caught her. The girl looks a bit scared and worried about him. So, she quickly explains she was wearing a mask. Relieved, the boy sighs and figures as long as she keeps her face hidden, they're probably safe. He tells her from now on, if she wants to go out, she has to take him along. No solo trips allowed while she's staying here. He stresses how dangerous her situation is, so she can't just wander around freely. The lady timidly asks if she caused trouble for him, and he reassures her that luckily, no one recognized her, because everyone thought there was just a ghost haunting the place. Looks like the lady had no clue what haunting meant. Seeing her clueless face, my guy gets agitated once again, and quickly tries to Google a movie about someone from ancient times who ends up in the future and gets into trouble because of their wild behavior. He wants to emphasize how dangerous her actions could be if she's not careful, and he is pretty sure what he just imagined perfectly fit the description of her character. The girl looks timid and promises to quit causing trouble if it's a bother to him. The boy then tells her to calm down and suggests ordering takeout later, asking what she'd like, whether hamburgers, chicken rolls, or anything else. The lady responds with a charming smile and thanks him for the healthy food he is ordering for her, but the boy teases her by reminding her that if she wants to eat even healthier, she could try the cat food. After their playful banter, the boy takes the laundry and puts the clothes into the washing machine. He also takes the opportunity to educate her about how the washing machine works. Upon seeing this, the girl quickly rushes to her room, retrieves her clothes, and returns to the laundry room to add them to the washing machine. While Shu Qing is looking at the laundry, he notices something tucked inside her clothes. Curious, he pulls out the item and holds it up in the air, leaving the girl completely embarrassed. She hurriedly snatches the item back from his hand and rushes back to her room. Zhu Qing is surprised to realize that it's a foot binding, which does not make sense as how she was moving around the neighborhood with her injured feet tied up with the binding. He glances at her, recalling how her feet seemed perfectly fine when he last saw her in those shoes, so it does not make any sense for her to tie her feet with clothes. He then decides to search online to see if martial arts enthusiasts have any interest in some sort of foot binding practices. But by the looks on his face, the search results don't align with his expectations. Turning to her, he casually asks if he can take a look at her feet. She stubbornly pouts and shakes her head, clearly uncomfortable with the request. The boy asks why is that, to which the girl just gives him a silent treatment. Well, it looks like this clueless guy has finally caught on that those bindings weren't for her feet, but for her chest. It's no wonder why she didn't bother with the undergarments he brought earlier, and he thought maybe her hooters were big enough already to fit anything. His soul nearly jumps out of his body as he realizes his foolish mistake. She shoots him an angry look, sword drawn and eyes blazing, seemingly ready to chop off his head. However, she manages to take control back to her nerves and turns around, leaving this weakling utterly terrified after getting scared to death. But since she's already mad at him, he tries to lighten the mood by calling her out and singing in his terrible voice. The lyrics are all about Lady Jiang, describing her modest stature, natural beauty without makeup, and how beautiful she is from head to toe. He even sings a song about a man who loved an ugly woman but had 5 children with her. He claims that only a Gaiga Chad with a Sigma male mentality could do such a thing, and he desperately wants to become one of them. Despite his attempts at banter, he ends up getting yelled at by the girl once again. Afterwards, he gets back to the main business, and tells her to watch some tutorials on how to wear these undergarments, and he will be back in 5 minutes. Hopefully with fewer jokes this time. Exactly 5 minutes later, he returns and checks on her progress. But to his surprise, she looks utterly spooked and asks if this is how everyone lives here. With a trembling voice, she mentions that while these undergarments might seem comfortable, they make her feel like a harlot. The boy tries to reassure her that there's nothing wrong with feeling comfortable, but she persists, calling it shameless. He challenges her perspective, asking what there is to be ashamed about. After a moment of contemplation, she falls silent. He launches into a humorous tirade about how she's stuck in the past while modern women flaunt their assets in anything they like. He even throws in a jab, saying if a man can wear half underwear, so can a woman as well. But she sticks to her guns, immediately rejecting what she calls immoral thinking. Seeing he couldn't reason with her, the dude decided to switch gears and calm her down. He revealed that besides studying and working, computers are also great for gaming. He warned her about the toxic fanbase in games like Apex Legends and instead introduced her to a game suspiciously similar to Super Mario. After seeing it for the first time, she became engrossed in the cartoonish world of jumping plumbers. While the lady was busy beating Niftsky's speedrun record, our hero quietly slipped away, thinking it's best to keep her occupied indoors. Later on, when he returned home, he interrupted her game to teach her how to defeat the final boss. After their gaming session, he felt exhausted and decided to take a nap while she continued playing on his laptop. Once he's settled into his room, he reflects on how lucky he was not to land a job on that rainy day. Otherwise, even if the interview had gone well, managing a 1,200-year-old ancient girl would have likely forced him to quit. As dusk casts its yellow hue across the room, our hero returns to find the lady. He suggests they eat out and tells her to dress nicely this time instead of looking like a slob. He even advises her to try a different hairstyle. She looks at her options and emerges in a new dress, blushing as she adjusts to the modern style, albeit a bit too modern for her standards. The boy blushes too, struck by her beauty, but quickly urges her to change back to her original dress to avoid drawing attention in public. This sends the girl into a fit of agitation and frustration beyond measure. As they wander outside, the old security guard jokingly asks if he's taking his girlfriend shopping again. Our hero clarifies that they're just friends, not dating. The old man then reveals he's holding onto a talisman to ward off ghosts temporarily until his mahogany arrives. When asked if he resembles the god from the New Year's festivities, Shu Qing gives a thumbs up and hurries along, noting it's getting late. Meanwhile, Lady Jiang is already occupied with her own thoughts about something. Once they're alone, she can't contain her curiosity any longer and asks Shu Qing what girlfriend means. He explains it's just a female friend. Perplexed, she wonders why he denied she was his girlfriend earlier. He tells her to be patient and promises he'll explain later. Xu Qing is pretty sure that if Lady Jiang figures out the true meaning of girlfriend, she might just pack her bag and bolt away from his place. As they start walking once again, the boy suggests she watch videos about her kingdom's history, but she expresses reluctance, noting that revisiting her past is painful. As they walk, Lady Jiang notices the absence of curfews, street vendors, and muddy potholes in this peaceful environment. Everything feels surreal and dreamlike to her in this prosperous world. Their stroll halts at a tea stall where Xu Qing orders bubble milk tea and other treats and urges her to try it. She observes curiously, but hesitates to drink. Looking around, she asks if people make money this way in this world, and if she could learn to do such work. Xu Qing bursts her bubble gently, explaining she can learn the skills but can't earn money without an ID card. While she sips on her tea somberly, the boy reassures her that the identity card issue will eventually be resolved, so she shouldn't lose hope. He encourages her to enjoy the tea at the moment. As she drinks, he asks if she finds it tasty, but it turns out she doesn't really like it. She mentions the taste isn't quite to her liking, and the pearls are difficult to chew. The boy readily agrees, stating he feels the same and doesn't understand how people enjoy drinking this piss-like stuff. The girl gives him a cold stare, likely not appreciating being the subject of his taste critique. He quickly reassures her that he thought girls liked sweet things, which is why he ordered it for her, while his own drink is a bit sour. He invites her to try his drink instead. She cautiously sips his drink through the straw, and as the delicious flavor hits her palate, her face lights up with joy. So the boy exchanges his drink with Lady Jiang's pearl tea and gives her a gentle smile, genuinely pleased that she enjoys it. As they continue their outing, Lady Jiang starts to feel that something isn't quite right, but decides not to dwell on it, focusing instead on sipping her drink once again. After finishing their meal, the boy shamelessly burps, indicating his full stomach. He suggests taking a quick tour before heading home, and they stroll through the vibrant city in the middle of the night. Suddenly, the boy decides to stop at a bus station and suggests taking her somewhere good. Since this is her first time hopping onto the bus, he tells her not to panic and just follow him. The boy proceeds to put a coin in and enters the bus, guiding her to a window seat so she can enjoy the ride to the fullest. As the bus starts moving through the busy streets, the girl is amazed by everything she sees outside. The boy is a bit surprised that she isn't overreacting, considering it's her first bus ride. She reveals that she has ridden horse-drawn carriages many times before. Once they reach the Lanjiang Bridge station, they exit the bus, and he introduces her to this new place called Lanjiang. He eagerly and proudly tells her that in her era, this place might have been desolate, but now it's the heart of the city's nightlife. As she takes in the sight before her eyes, she wonders if this is even possible. The boy encourages her to find her own answers by studying history if she finds it hard to believe. While they stand by the river, the boy takes out his phone and doesn't waste a moment before capturing a memento. The girl happens to be looking in his direction, creating a perfect pose for a picture, and our hero captures that moment with a single click. At that moment, he also promises her a trip on a plane once her identity card issue is sorted out. The idea of soaring into the sky is completely new to her, so he reassures her once more and says that for now, she can stay in his cramped little room and learn about the world. Curious as a child, she asks what comes after understanding the world. The boy pauses, thinking for a moment, and explains that she'll achieve true freedom, gaining a clear sense of what's right and wrong for her, and she can fully enjoy this future world. Checking his phone, he announces that the time has come. Right on cue, fireworks burst into the sky, painting it with vibrant colors and light. She can't help but wonder if her family would be amazed by such a magnificent sight. He smiles at her and encourages her to enjoy this time here, on behalf of her relatives as well. The next day arrives, and the news our hero sees is rather unpleasant to say the least, because Lady Jiang can be seen doing her ninja moves outside by the lightning poles. Of course, the dude's face sours at the sight, but it's also kind of reassuring. Since she played ninja at midnight, the guards have been on patrol more frequently, so there wouldn't be any real thieves around for a moment. Suddenly, Lady Jiang notices people gathered outside and curiously points her finger towards them, asking what's going on. Xu Qing gets creeped out as he realizes they've started to perform rituals to ward off the ghosts in the area. Shortly after, they dig back into their meals, and the lady points out that Xu Qing's lifestyle feels like being in a prison. He chuckles and reminds her how they went shopping earlier, watched documentaries, had lunch, shed a few tears over some anime, and then had dinner. He tells her that it's called having a home and an otaku's lifestyle, but the girl does not seem to understand anything. So Xu Qing explains that staying at home means having the freedom to choose what to do and where to go. He compares it to an ancient landlord who spends his days in the mansion with his family and a cat. The lady then decides to go for a little walk, and Xu Qing asks if she wants to go out on her own. She stays silent, which is all the confirmation he needs. So, he goes on a tirade, listing all the dangers and her shortcomings she has, effectively shutting down the idea and telling her to just stay here for now until she is not fully aware of the world. He tells her that even if he gave her money to eat at restaurants, she still has to figure out how to earn money. Otherwise, she'll just be on a spending spree. He reminds her that she can either commit crimes to get some quick cash or do some hunting, but since there are no hunting forests around, she'll end up going through garbage. Finally, the girl gets silent and just eats her burger, thinking that without that single ID card, she can't even go out for walks on her own. Seeing her sad face, Shu-Ching then puts his hand into his pocket and offers her 2 coins, reminding her that she's at least learned how to take the bus so she can experience it by herself, which will be her first step forward. But the girl refuses to take the coins, saying she hasn't learned anything. Shu-Ching, however, forcibly gives her the coins, telling her to spend some time outside and assuring her that she's learned a lot in the first month she's been here. Curious, the girl asks if there are really ghosts out there, so he points at the people outside doing their ghost-busting routine. He assures her that once she starts making money, she can pay him back. When she wonders aloud what happens if she doesn't earn anything, he assures her they'll figure it out. Once again, she thanks him, calling him Young Warrior. The boy then runs a game on his computer where she can play a character, explore, and learn how to make some cash. He suggests she give it a try to see if she gets the hang of it. When she asks why she can't just do what he does and work online for money, he explains it's pretty complex and she should start with the basics. Suddenly the doorbell rings and the boy freaks out, telling her to hide in her room. But the person at the gate gets all antsy and yells at the boy to open up. When he hears that voice, Shu-Ching gets even more jittery and hurriedly guides her into a room and locks the door before finally facing his father. There's this grumpy old man staring him down. The boy nervously says hi, but the old man adjusts his glasses and insists the boy call him landlord for now. The old man then looks around, demanding to know if his son has found a job yet. The boy, addressing his father as landlord, assures him that he will pay the rent on time and defends himself, stating that since he can afford the rent and his current lifestyle, he does not feel the need to have a job. The old man gets all agitated to hear this, and just like a typical father, he starts berating his son for how big of a failure he is. But the son tries to cut him off by saying since his father is here for the rent, he'll gladly pay up. When the old man spots some RPG game running on the computer, he gets even more annoyed and makes it clear that if his son doesn't find a job by next month, he's hiking up the rent, no questions asked.